watch. Wake up. You got fire to watch.
This is Pacho. Do you read me?
Be advised, you are coming in weak and unreadable.
Say again, Com Tower. This is Pacho. Do you read me? Over.
Pacho, this is Con Tower. I read you Lima Charlie.
Com Tower. Request permission to launch and commence the field op. Over.
Stand by. Pacho, permission granted. Say again, permission granted.
Roger that. Launching podcast in 3, 2. You are now entering the field op with your host, Pacho Correa, Chief Warrant Officer 3, United States Marine Corps retired. Get some. Hurrah! Get some. Hurrah! What's going on, everybody? Baby Friday is upon us. The weekend is almost here. Or Friday night's Eve. God damn, it's almost the weekend. Hey, we got a great show for you today. But before we get started, let's get all the pleasantries and all that stuff that, pays the light bills and helps out the folks at Sitch Radio. The show is brought to you by our great sponsors of Primerica. Hey, do you know what your retirement number is or financial independence number? Now, for me, I would like to, retire within the next 5 to 10 years. In other words, stop working. So I know my independence number, and it can be pretty high. So I've been working on that. But what is your number? So it could be, a couple $100,000. It could be $1 million. It could be two, whatever. The folks at Primerica can help you find out what that number is, because at the end of the day, folks, retirement is not an age. It is an actual figure that's going to help you sustain you for in your twilight years. Let's just put it that way, for the rest of your remaining years. And you want to live comfortably and be able to you and your spouse be able to live comfortably for those next years. So it's all right there on the show bio. Give the folks at Primerica a call. They'll be able to take care of you. And at the end of the day, look, there's no commitment, there's no pushy people. That's what makes this company so awesome. I mean, I'm part of them now as well. And listen, nobody here is gonna try to sell you or cram something down your throat. Because at the end of the day, they just want you to be well informed and educated, so that way when you do make that decision with whoever you go, you at least have a better knowledge and get something that's gonna take care of you and your family. Also, this show is also, we are now sponsored by the VA. So here's an awesome message from Mike Richmond.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Do you want easy access to VA Online, as well as other government websites? Then login.gov is the way to go. Login.gov is a U.S. government service that provides seamless access to government websites. By creating a login.gov account, you can use the same email and password to sign into va.gov, My Healthy Vet, VA DoD e-benefits, and the VA Health and Benefits mobile app, among other VA services. Login.gov also allows you to securely sign in to USA Jobs and TSA PreCheck, and to apply for SBA small business loans and disaster assistance. One login, many resources. To create a login.gov account, simply go to va.gov and click sign in.
Some really good music. Hey, by the way, I got to give it to the VA. They've consolidated that login.gov. It is an actually pretty cool website. They finally, everything that used to be on the old platform, which was e-benefits, it's all consolidated now on this website. So you not only can you file for a claim through va.gov, you can also contact your medical provider, My Healthy Vet. You can also go on the other services that the VA all has to offer, and because it's all merged into all these different hyperlinks. So it's actually pretty good, and it's a pretty good service. In addition to that, I just want to add on to what Mike Richmond said, that you can get a small business loan and all these other great things. Did you know that if you're helping, for those of you who are 100% rated, and you're getting compensated by the VA, and you're using some of those monies to help out your an elderly parent that you're caring for, you can actually apply for a program that could give you some substance and assistance and it won't take away from your VA benefits. So if you're interested on that, shoot me a DM on Facebook or through YouTube, whatever the case. Hit me up. I'll send you the form. I've been trying. It's just Facebook won't allow me to put PDF documents on it, but maybe I could do a screenshot. But I'll tell you what the form is. But take advantage of that. So I wait because I just did it for my mom, as a matter of fact, because I do financially provide for her. So there might be some benefit to you. Okay. Well, in addition to the VA, Primerica, and all the good folks at Stitch Radio, which shout out to Brian Coburn and his new intern who is learning how to do the back ends of this show. The folks at Stitch Radio have been out amazing all these years. This show wouldn't be here without them. So huge shout out to them. And if you think you can, do whatever I do, have a cool room with a diamond in the back and this microphone, and all this stuff, then reach out to them and they'll get you all taken care of. And you can have your own show. Maybe we could be colleagues. You know what I'm saying? So reach out and give them a shout out. And last but not least, the show is also brought to you by the Great American Constitution. I spent 21 years giving my heart, my pound of flesh, and my soul to the Green Machine. And so we're all about the First Amendment, freedom of speech, the Second Amendment, right to bear arms, among the other great things that the Constitution has to offer. So what does that mean? That if you like this show, like, subscribe, and follow. And if you don't, swipe left and perhaps check out an awesome show and support them from stitchradio.com. All right. So that's pretty much all the pleasantries. Let's get on with this show. Hey, so as I mentioned last week, I know I seemed kind of a little bit off and everything. Don't let this sexy accent and the happiness that you see exuberating from me right now. I mean, I do deal with my demons every once in a while, and it was culminating with just a bunch of stuff going on. And as you all know, my knee, I had knee surgery, so a total knee replacement. So obviously, I've been in that space where some of us who have, again, I'm not putting it all on PTSD. I'm just saying that it's something that I live with. So I was in my head. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I was just kind of like, and I was trying to dig myself out. Obviously, because where your attention goes, your energy flows, right? So so I'm trying not to dwell on things and whatever I got personally, because obviously I'm a firm believer of the law of attraction and everything else. So I don't want to bring those bad vibes, so to speak, because even the most motivated, the most happiest person in the world. I mean, I bet Tony Robinson and all the other guys who I follow, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden, and everybody else. I'm sure that those guys have crappy days. Do they not? Obviously, they should. I mean, they're human beings, right? So uh, obviously, we need to be able to cope and self-soothe on basically how to dig ourselves out of those holes, because once we keep going deeper and deeper, that's how we get in trouble. So I was just kind of just thinking about things, and like I said, I got to be honest, I've been having some recurring nightmares in regards to combat. So I was just I was like, well, maybe this is something that's getting out, that I need to get out and communicate to you as well, as that how is it that we cope, or what coping mechanisms did we use in combat? uh, I could tell you, I could totally be completely honest with you. You know, depend depend for me, it depended on, or it was kind of different. It was two different environments. On my first deployment, I was a young enlisted. Well, I wasn't that young, but I was a much much younger than I am today. I can tell you that. I was a sergeant, and we deployed we were kind of nomads. We were all over Iraq, driving around with the folks from my buddies from the fourth LAR. So shout out to the Iron Horse Marines. uh, we were all over the place, and it's much different. It was a much different setup because obviously we were living out of our vehicles. We were, wherever our log train parked. I mean, that was home for the next couple of days. So that was the base, and we had a head shed, and so we had the forward, the main, and the behind. So we were, the forward would push forward, and we just kind of trail behind. The logistics train would kind of trail behind him. Hey, did you know that logistics is very important. As a matter of fact, Alexander the Great, his log train was over 40 miles long, and he was a firm believer, um, of being heavy on logistics. As a matter of fact, that's what led him to basically almost conquering the entire world. It wasn't until his last few years that he actually spread himself too thin, and his logistics ended up failing. That's what led to his demise. Just some historical, um, a little history for you history buffs out there. But nonetheless, so we would play catch up, and what was it that how did a lot of us cope with combat? I mean, just like any other person. I mean, or like those of us who have had the pleasure of going to Okinawa on our first enlistment. I mean, this is back in the early '90s and everything. Um, you became a drunk, a PT freak, or a barracks rat. So, uh, as funny as it was. And by the way, yes, even though our commanding officers and whatever, they made it like it was a dry, nobody could drink, and this is supposedly a Muslim country. Let me tell you, you could find booze just about friggin' anywhere. I'm gonna be completely friggin' honest. So whenever we stopped at a little vendor place, whatever, I mean, I remember 6-pack of cans of vodka were available and were purchased, and I'm just throwing that out there. And care packages. And by the way, shout out to, I sound like Christopher Walken. And by the way, I want more cowbell. No, shout out to my sister from another Mister, Erica. I mean, I once got a care package, and it was fruit punch Gatorade. Seal was perfectly and everything, but I remember it had a sticky taped on it. It said, "Sip, do not chug." And when I cracked that seal open, I mean, it was vodka with, she put some food coloring. So shout out to her for making that stuff happen. I could talk about it now because I'm out of the service and I just don't care. So for we had it was the best about a week or two that we had, that I think my Marines and I had in a long time when we were in that first enlistment. So same scenario. I mean, you could become a PT freak, a drunk, or a book junkie. So you could have destructive or positive behaviors. Uh, which a lot of us. I mean, hell, you're in the middle of friggin' nowhere. All you got is just your friends and your comrades, basically from your platoon, the company, or the battalion. I mean, you're traveling in mass and everything. You're gonna get on each other's nerves. I mean, and there was. Let me tell you, when we were in this place called Dogwood, which is an army base camp about 7 clicks from Iraq, from Baghdad. Um, we motor T, because we were the bastard children. Most of us were Hispanics, Latins. So I mean, it was not like we were like in East LA and shit, but a lot of the guys were we're a lot Hispanic. I'm Colombian. We had some Mexicans, but I mean we were it was like the hood, so nobody wanted to deal with us. So we were like the bastard children. Um, but there was a lot of stuff settled out in the Moto T line, not just by the guys in my platoon, but also other guys from the rest of the company. I mean, you had beef with somebody, you went back there and handle your business. Somebody, they came out basically, full of sand and a little bit batter up, looking like a powdered donut. But whatever the issue happened back there, stay back there, and everything was settled. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of us that obviously settled and cope with combat many different ways. I started doing it. I started doing a lot of exercising. For some reason, I found a fucking jump rope that I still have to this day. I can't jump rope anymore because obviously that's why I have a bionic knee now. However, I still have this jump rope that I found. I forgot how I found it, but anyways, I started doing jump rope and exercises every day. I had a routine because you need to establish some type of routine, even though your day is kind of different. But we established a routine. We got up at a certain time. There was just something. We broke down our camp, and even though when we were static, I just had that routine, exercise, whatever. And then by the afternoon, after working all day, turning wrenches or running out missions, uh, I always had something to look forward to. So a lot of us we had our own little quirks, little different routines. My boy John Mestis, who I'm trying to get on this show, the Maverick, his thing was, he would sleep on his cot. He would always before he start breaking his cot down, he would always put a little bit of detergent on top, powdered detergent, some water, and wash it out. And obviously, because it's hot as shit over there, within 20, 10, 15 minutes, the cot was dry. He would break it down and put it away. And that was kind of like his thing, among other things. And then, so we had to establish some type of pattern just so you could remain sane. Because after that, that's when, I mean, we did have a lot of, a couple of Marines get in trouble, obviously. And I'm not saying a bored Marine is a dangerous Marine. I'm just saying any person, uh, for that matter, I mean, you can lose your shit and get into trouble if you don't have something to keep you engaged. So that's why we made it a point. John Messes and I, and also this other guy that was with some of the, I was, because I was part of permanent staff at that reserve unit. We we made it a point to try to establish something with the Marines, keep them engaged, keep them activated, in the sense that basically keep him mentally engaged. So we used to do. I mean, hell, one night, we were telling jokes, so we would get together. We just made a point to eat together, all those things. I don't know if anybody here. I'm gonna throw myself in the bus here, but I went to the chaplain's tent, and there was a bunch of books there, and I happened to grab one from Nora Roberts. Now, if you don't know who Nora Roberts is, I highly recommend you Google her. Basically, she writes romance novels. That's all she writes. So think of Fabio being on this cover, holding some chick, and blah blah blah. So I remember this book clear as day, like I'm holding it in my fucking hand right now. It was called the Stanislavski Sisters, and by the way, there was part 1, 2, and 3, I believe. So I found this book and I started reading it. I mean, I was completely hooked. It was a romance book about these sisters, and they didn't have love. I think they were Ukrainian or something. They lived in the U.S. and blah blah blah, Armenian or some shit. Anyways, it was a really great book. So much so that I told my buddy Sledge, that was his name. His last name is Sledge. First name is Hombre, like the word man in Spanish. His name is Hombre Sledge. I swear to God, that's his name. So we dubbed him Manhammer. And he was a staff sergeant. So we said, hey, staff sergeant Manhammer, and it was just kind of like a pet name too. So I found Sledge because Sledge and we went back many years back to my first unit, and I was like, dude, I found this amazing book that you need to read. He's like, really? And he's like, let me see it. And so I loaned it to him, and I say, hey, keep the book. I'll come back on my next resupply, because I used to go resupply him every week or every couple of days. We would resupply him, so I tagged along just to make sure that my Marines were doing everything they were supposed to. Um, I said, hey, this book. So he started reading it, and by the time I came around, he was like, oh my god, I can't believe. So we between him, because he was a radio guy, and his other Marines, we started kind of like our own little book club. So we would talk about the Stanislavski sisters, part 1, and then when I found part 2, oh, that was like, oh, amazing, amazing. So I found part 2. We talked because it's about the other sister who found love and she got treated bad. And I mean, really good books. I'm not gonna lie. I really thank you, Nora Roberts, for what you did for us when we were in Iraq. So again, we found that was a healthy way of coping, in addition to exercising and everything. Um, there were some destructive behaviors too that that we did do when we were out there. I mean, I remember Marines just doing some dumb shit, using their weapons and stuff like, and not anybody, just because it's in the desert. So, and we also had Marines supposedly when, some of the outposts that they had, because if you return, if you discharge a weapon, you had to report that. And according to them, oh, we saw something and we heard, blah blah. So we fired a couple of shots, warning shots, which I know that wasn't the fucking case. So you have to keep your Marines or your troops engaged and keep them in a pattern. Again, going back to a little bit of tidbit of history is when the Romans would, because the Roman Empire almost took over half of the world. When the Roman Empire would conquer their whatever it is they were, empire they were taking over or whatever, then they would use the soldiers to help to rebuild that town. Whatever they destroyed, they helped rebuild it and all that stuff. In other words, they would keep them engaged. That would prevent them from doing dumb shit, getting into trouble, raping, pillaging, and killing. Because obviously you take over an empire, and then now the Roman Empire would also focus on winning the hearts and minds under the ruling of the new emperor. So we that was one thing that our leadership was really good on, is that basically they try to keep us engaged. Obviously, you have if you have a really good chaplain, that would be that I would say that a good or crappy chaplain would make or break that deployment. it, you know, and I hate to say it, but our chaplain back then, I mean, my nipples do have more serve more of a purpose than this guy. I mean, this guy was worthless, and I can honestly say that now. I mean, the dude tried his best, but he was worthless. So, but and then I also know some chaplains that are freaking outstanding and motivated, and I mean, they get it done. So, and that's why if you have a good chaplain, get the Marines involved, your troops involved doing their thing, and that this person is the litmus paper to sense how is the morale and what else do the Marines need. Now, I can honestly say here that you can't. I mean, you're not gonna please everybody. I mean, somebody's gonna have some personal stuff going, some things like that. So, as leaders, we had to uh, make sure that our personnel was, how can I put it? Engaged. If something happened back home, which some of us, you get the whole, hey, dear John, dear, sorry, it didn't work out. I'm banging your cousin or your brother or whatever. We had those situations, and then there were others that, that there were emergencies and things like that. I mean, those things are going to happen. You just can't prevent them. You just help your Marines cope through that. But the main thing is just that, trying to find a healthy mechanism. I did find, crazy enough. I mean, when you deploy, again, this is just the case for me. Is it's kind of, I mean, obviously you start smoke. If you never smoked, some people that I never thought that they would smoke or seen them smoke before started smoking. Uh, I used to chew and dip way back in the day. I mean, I don't do none of that trash anymore. I mean, looking back, it's like, who the fuck does this? But um, funny enough is that, I was chewing back then, and however, my family wouldn't send me, and despite me asking, like, hey, I need to send me a couple of logs of, whatever, nothing. Especially my kids' mom's parents, they were firm believers that nope. So once I ran out, and because I got tired of buying the stuff from the rolling PX, which it was nasty. I mean, it tastes like formaldehyde and all kinds of other nasty stuff. I stopped chewing. Believe it or not, I stopped chewing in the middle of this, in that deployment to Iraq. Funny enough, so which, I mean, I found it like, that's pretty friggin' amazing. So I ran out of that. So I mean, I guess that was one positive thing. I just try to keep I try to keep as motivated as possible, because in the middle of the night, that's where a lot of us, once you go to bed and you're laying there, I mean, a lot of us, you just start getting in your head, what's everybody back home doing? I wonder if they miss me. Uh, you know, what could I be doing now? I could be, driving my car, my motorcycle, being with my wife, being with my kids. And you just start going in that pattern. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, there were some nights I cried my ass off because I just, one, I miss my kids. I miss being back home, and it just get. And I mean, and depending on some of the shit that you see out in town and how you process some of those things. I lived in Colombia in a time, and I grew up in a time that there was a lot of turmoil in my in my home country, and I'm very again. I'm American 100%. I love for America's given to me. However, I mean, I can't forget my heritage and where I came from. So, but I just remember that as a child growing up, there was a lot of turmoil where I came from, and I can sit here and tell you stories, and you could probably tell me other garbage that it's out there on TV and what or stupid shows that are out there portraying the negative. But I did see some things, and the great thing about the U.S. is that anybody can make themselves anything that you want to be, regardless of your background, your environment, where you came. I'm telling you because I came from that. And and where growing up, there was no middle class. It was like, hey, you're this or you're that, and you know, and I mean, I've seen houses made out of mud huts and shit like that. So seeing that in Iraq to me it wasn't as shocking as it was for some people. And then obviously combat and other situations. I mean, that also impacts you. So you're trying to cope with all this shit. And again, we unfortunately we had a and again, I'm not putting the blame on Chaplin, but he's just he wasn't the best. So I had Marines that they just didn't want to talk to him. So we would try to like talk to amongst each other, and try to help them, okay, process that. But again, I didn't know any. I mean, now I can eloquently try to help somebody, guide them through whatever issues they got going. Obviously, because I've had many freaking years of therapy myself. But nonetheless, back then I didn't know. I didn't even know I had PTSD up until again 2013 is when I just almost completely lost it. And and then when a therapist told me, hey, you're acting like this because of X. Back then I didn't know anything. So when we came back, a lot of us are just kind of meandering around and acting a certain behaving a certain way, and losing our shit, and just just like moody and blah blah blah, because obviously those things marked us back then. And I think throughout the years things have gotten better, and they have therapists embedded with units and so on and so forth, so to better instill coping mechanisms. And they to just kind of bring some other things that from other shows, alpha stims, those little electrical strobes that I spoke to, that Raul Pieti, he was on our show. I mean, I wish we would have had one of those, because at those times, as the years went on, because I was there during the first year, but as the years went on, they started, doing these studies and obviously sending people and therapists, and they were more focused because, people, service members were just committing suicide left and right, and more than they are today. However, I mean, it's still an issue. So there's more understanding now and coping mechanisms to help these folks who were deploying to those austere environments, to basically prevent them from being a freaking statistic. So at the end of the day, you back then, you act, you just go with the environment and all those things, and you just kind of like, what is that you do, you know what I'm saying? So good, bad, or indifferent, moving time forward, even though those events marked me, and my scars may not be physical, and just like some of my fellow Marines who deploy, uh, I still wouldn't trade it for the world, because it's made me who I am, and that experience, who knows where else I would be if I was any different. So that's pretty much it today. Um, I think it felt important to bring this stuff out. So I hope it was helpful for you. And if you've been kind of struggling with something in your head, or you've been having recurrent dreams, or you feel yourself you're going through that dark hole, reach out to our show, reach out to the folks of the VA, TRICARE, Military One Source. There's the suicide hotline. The bottom line is, don't go into that dark place where we can never bring you back, or you take that ultimate step that there's no coming back from, because we're the ones left behind with that burn and asking ourselves, what else could we have done to bring you back? So I think we're going to end it right here, folks. So tune in on the show now next week. We got an awesome show for you. So with that being said, we're just going to go ahead and end it. So Daisuki, Aish Tomas, Hoorah, get some. See you next week, folks. Yat!